everyone, it's Connor Mitchell, head whiz of Dragon Rider Network, and welcome to another episode of 24 Days of tech-cember Season 3, our annual series to show you some of the coolest technology out there for the holiday season. Today we will be looking at some of the best 4K cameras you can get for under $1,000. By the way, many of these cameras do have pretty great features besides the fact that they shoot 4K video, but for the most part, we are not going to be talking about those features. 4K is what dominates today's episode. So, with that out of the way, let's get into it. To start off this list of cameras is the Sony RX100 Mark V for $999. With this pocketable camera, you'll be able to record 4K video in 30 frames per second and 24 frames per second in 5-minute clips. The Mark V also allows you to record in Sony's flat color profile S-Log2, which allows you to get a higher dynamic range when working with video in post. Internally, this camera is capable of recording 420 color depth, but using an HDMI output, you can have an external recorder help the camera record in 422 uncompressed video to give you more flexibility in post. Looking at some of the other features based around video, you can actually pull 8 megapixel stills from your 4K video right on the camera. And if 4K isn't your thing, you can record full HD at 120 frames per second, and you even have a super high frame rate mode that allows you to record at an insane 960 frames per second. Obviously, you wouldn't use this mode in a professional shooting environment or even an average one, but it is a very cool feature to have. Next on this list is the Panasonic Lumix G85 with the 12 to 60mm OIS lens for $899. This camera is able to achieve 4K video at 30 frames per second or 24 frames per second at data speeds of 100 megabits per second. It also supports full 1080p at 60 frames per second. There are also multiple 4K photo modes on this camera, including 4K burst, which is basically recording as much 4K footage as you want, up to 30 minutes, and captures 8 megapixel photos at 30 frames per second. You also have the 4K pre-burst mode, which records 8 megapixel images at 30 frames per second, 1 second prior to you hitting the shutter button. So for all those moments where you know something is going to happen, but you don't know when. And all this can be shot with the help of the dual IS the camera packs in, which combines the in-body 5XS stabilization with the lens-based stabilization, making everything that much smoother. The Olympus OMD EM10 Mark III with 14 to 42mm EZ lens coming in at $799 might look like an older camera on the outside, but the capabilities of this camera more than make up for the looks. The Olympus is able to shoot 4K at up to 30 frames per second and with a bitrate of 102 megabits per second. This camera's 4K ability is also extended to its time-lapse feature, which uses 4K stills at 5 frames per second in order to capture subtle or slow movement over long periods of time. And if you choose to shoot in lower resolution than 4K, you can shoot full 1080p video at 60 frames per second, or you can go down to 720p and capture video up to 120 frames per second. Another entry from Sony makes its way onto the list as the Sony Alpha A6300 with 16 to 50mm lens comes in at just $850. Not only does this camera record at 4K at 30 frames per second, but it also is based on the Super 35mm recording area with an effective 20 megapixels. You can record in the 420 color depth, but with the help of an external recorder over HDMI, you can record in uncompressed 422. This camera also has the capability to shoot in Sony's flat style of S-Log3, which offers 14 stops of dynamic range. Additionally, S-Log2 is also available for those wishing to shoot in that profile as well. And if you are shooting in a low resolution, you have the ability to shoot 1080p video at up to 120 frames per second, which can slow your footage down to either 4 or 5 times slower than real life, depending on your preferred frame rate. Last on this list is the GoPro Hero 6, coming in at $499. Now, this isn't exactly a camera that you would use in the same way as many of these other cameras, but the 4K capabilities of the GoPro have truly improved with this version. With this camera, you are able to shoot full 4K video at 60 frames per second. You heard me right. 60 frames per second of 4K. You also get 120 frames per second with 2.7K and 1440p, and if you go down to 1080p, you can shoot up to 240 frames per second. This new GoPro also comes with advanced image stabilization, so you don't have to worry about too much shake if you are using this camera to either record amazing stunts or use it for vlogging. And right out of the box, this camera is waterproof up to 33 feet without any housing, and that is certainly something that every other camera on this list probably wishes it could do. So anyway, everyone, those are my top 5 4K cameras for under $1,000. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for more 24 days of tech-cember. Anyway, everyone, I've been Connor Mitchell, and I will catch you all at the next episode. See you then.